For years, the Duggar sisters have been some of the most recognizable faces in reality television and online family culture. Their smiles, their routines, and the soft harmony between them created a sense of comfort for viewers who tuned in week after week. They represented stability, togetherness, and a familiar rhythm that made millions feel as though they were part of the family. But over the past months, and in some cases years, something unexpected has happened. Something quiet. Something subtle. Something that slowly grew into one of the biggest mysteries surrounding the family. Multiple Duggar sisters have gone silent. This is not the silence of taking a weekend off. Not the silence of a busy schedule. Not the silence of a missed selfie or skipped update. This silence is different. It stretches across months, even seasons. It spans family gatherings, holidays, celebrations, and milestones. It leaves empty spaces in photos where familiar faces once stood. It leaves fans asking questions without receiving a single answer. At first, the shift was barely noticeable. Life can be unpredictable. People take breaks. But the silence deepens slowly. The way twilight becomes night. Subtle at first, but unmistakable once darkness fully settles in. Some sisters stopped posting entirely. Some disappeared from family photos that once always included them. Some simply faded from the background of life online. The result was a growing sense of concern among fans. A quiet anxiety. A feeling that something was happening behind the scenes. Something unspoken. But to understand why this silence feels so powerful, we must step back into the past. Back to the days when the Duggar sisters were always present, always smiling, always intertwined in each other's daily lives. They appeared on camera. They appeared in public events. They appeared in nearly every family portrait. Their childhood was shaped by the attention of millions, and their teenage years were documented for the world. That level of exposure leaves a mark. It teaches you how to present yourself. It teaches you how to protect yourself. It teaches you how to survive under pressure. But it also takes something away. It takes privacy. It takes solitude. It takes the freedom to make mistakes quietly. It takes the ability to grow in silence. As adults, some of the sisters may have realized they wanted those pieces back. This might explain the early signs. Those first hints that something was changing. One sister would post less often. Another would quietly avoid appearing in group shots. A third would go weeks without sharing anything at all. Individually, these absences meant very little. Together, they formed a quiet pattern. A pattern of withdrawal. A pattern of personal boundaries forming. A pattern of emotional recalibration after years of exposure. But the true turning point came when the sisters began missing major events. Gatherings that always brought everyone together. Moments that fans eagerly expected to see shared. A birthday. A holiday. A family dinner. An anniversary. And the sisters who once never missed these moments online were suddenly nowhere to be seen. Their absence wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. This is what fueled the mystery. The Duggar family continued sharing updates, but the missing sisters remained unmentioned. Their silence became a presence of its own, something that lived between the lines of every post, every photograph, every family moment. Fans began searching for clues. Old pictures. Background appearances. Stray comments. Tagged memories. They found almost nothing. Then, occasionally, just enough to keep hope alive. A like on an old photo. A name briefly tagged. A blurry figure in the back of a room. A fleeting birthday wish that disappeared after a day. These small signals told a bigger truth. The sisters hadn't vanished from the family. They had vanished from the public. And that distinction changes everything. Their silence began to look less like disappearance, and more like a conscious retreat. A step back from the spotlight. A choice to reinvent life away from the expectations of millions. Behind every quiet withdrawal lies a personal story shaped by pressure, attention, identity, responsibility, and the complicated journey of becoming your own person after being part of a very public whole. Growing up in front of the world means experiencing your childhood through the eyes of strangers. It means receiving comments before you even understand them. It means performing a version of yourself that feels safe enough to share. But adulthood demands authenticity. It demands individuality. It demands the courage to step away and find yourself without the world watching. And that is what the sisters seem to be embracing. A rediscovery of self. For some of them, silence may mean rest. For others, it may mean healing. For others, it may mean privacy during personal transitions. And for some, it may simply mean choosing a quieter life. The sisters who once lived in the spotlight may now be exploring who they are without it. And this brings us to a deeper emotional truth about silence. Silence is not empty. Silence is full. Full of meaning. Full of reflection. Full of transformation. The Duggar sisters' silence feels mysterious because the world grew used to hearing them. But silence is sometimes the only space where a person can hear themselves. And perhaps that is what they have needed all along. The question now is not, where did they go? The question is, who are they becoming? But the silence surrounding the Duggar sisters did not settle into the background. It continued to expand, like a quiet fog spreading across the landscape of their public lives. Months turned into seasons, seasons turned into nearly a year, and the absence became unmistakable. The family continued to share updates, birthdays, babies, relocations, milestones, but the missing sisters were rarely, if ever, present. The digital footprint in photos shrank. The emotional presence in online conversations faded. It was as if the sisters had stepped behind a curtain and chosen to close it slowly, gently, but firmly. Fans could feel it. Friends could sense it. Even casual viewers picked up on it. Yet, no one said a word. And that silence became louder than any explanation could have been. To understand why this silence grew so deep, we must look beyond the timeline and into the emotional environment surrounding the sisters. Growing up in a home filled with cameras creates an unusual relationship with identity. You learn to be seen before you learn to be yourself. You learn to respond to expectations before understanding your own desires. This is the paradox of public childhood. Your life belongs to you. But your image belongs to the world. Every laugh becomes a memory shared millions of times. Every disagreement becomes a moment analyzed by strangers. Every quiet expression becomes a screenshot, zoomed in by people who don't know you personally. Over time, this pressure shapes you. It teaches you to protect yourself. It teaches you to limit your vulnerability. It teaches you to guard your emotions. And eventually, it may push you toward a choice that feels like a lifeline. The choice to step away. This is not an act of rebellion. This is an act of self-preservation. When the sisters began pulling back, one by one, quietly, subtly, it created a chain reaction. Privacy can be contagious. When one sibling discovers the relief of living quietly, another may feel inspired to try the same. And for the first time in their lives, they may have felt free to make this choice. The silence may not have been coordinated. It may not have been planned. But it aligned naturally because each sister reached a similar emotional threshold at different times. Some had children of their own, and realized their new families needed a different level of privacy. Some moved to new cities where anonymity felt refreshing rather than isolating. Some developed new hobbies, communities, and relationships that did not depend on public sharing. And some simply grew tired of the noise of online life. It is important to remember that social media is often louder than reality. A quiet account does not mean a quiet life. A missing post does not mean a missing person. A lack of updates does not mean a lack of joy. People can live full, rich, meaningful lives without documenting a single moment of them. But despite this understanding, fans remained emotionally connected to the sisters. After all, they had watched them grow from children to adults. They had seen their milestones, their emotions, their first steps into independence. The absence, therefore, created a kind of emotional vacuum. That vacuum led to concern. Concern led to questions. Questions led to speculation. And speculation led to theories. Many of them dramatic, many of them inaccurate, and many of them based on fear rather than truth. But occasionally, a small hint would appear. Something subtle enough to maintain privacy, but visible enough to signal connection. A sister's name, tagged in an older post. A blurry reflection in the background of a story. A short comment from a close friend saying, "Thinking of you." A family member posting a quote about personal growth. A mention in a caption that disappeared quickly. These clues, though tiny, showed that the silence was not a wall. It was a doorway. A doorway into a different chapter. One that did not include public update. The Duggar sisters, in their own ways, seemed to be stepping into individualized identities. Their silence became a bridge from who they were expected to be to who they wanted to become. And that transition can be both liberating and frightening. Identity is not something discovered overnight. It is built slowly, through quiet reflection. through moments that are not photographed, through conversations that are not posted, through decisions made without the weight of public eyes. And in this private space, the sisters may have found breathing room for the first time. The emotional pressure that comes with decades of public attention does not fade quickly. It settles deep within a person's sense of self. And healing from that pressure requires time, distance, and stillness. This stillness is what fans are witnessing. Not crisis. Not conflict. Not disappearance. But stillness. Stillness is often misunderstood in a digital world built on noise. We are conditioned to think silence means something is wrong. But sometimes silence means things are finally becoming right. The sisters are not gone. They are not lost. They are not absent from their families' lives. They are simply present in quieter places. In private gatherings without cameras. In personal conversations not meant for the public. In shared moments that do not need to be proven online. In laughter and tears known only to the people closest to them. This choice, this collective silence, is more profound than any update they could have shared. It is a declaration of independence. A declaration of emotional maturity. A declaration that their identities do not need to be public to be real. And as the silence stretches onward, a new question emerges. What happens next? Will the sisters eventually return online? Will they share updates again? Will they reappear in family photos? Will the silence break with a big announcement or with a quiet, gentle post? No one knows the answer. But one thing is certain. Their return, if and when it comes, will be intentional. It will be on their terms. It will reflect the women they have become, not the girls the world remembers. And that moment, whenever it arrives, will mark the beginning of a new chapter, not just for the sisters, but for the fans who have followed their journey from the beginning. Because silence, when understood deeply, is not an ending. It is a transition. A transition into a life shaped not by cameras, but by authenticity. Not by public expectation, but by personal truth. Not by external noise, but by internal clarity. The Duggar sisters may be silent now, but silence is rarely empty. In their silence, they are rebuilding. In their silence, they are reshaping. In their silence, they are rediscovering who they truly are. As the silence stretched over the months, the emotional landscape of the Duggar sisters' absence began to change. At first, it was surprising. Then, concerning. Then mysterious. But slowly, something else began to emerge. A sense of acceptance from those who watched them for years. Acceptance that perhaps this chapter of quiet wasn't a disappearance, but a personal evolution. The truth is that silence, when it lasts this long, often reflects a deeper reality. It means a person has prioritized inner growth over external validation. And when multiple sisters choose this at the same time, it signals a shared emotional awakening. A realization that the world they grew up in no longer defines the world they want to live in. To understand how powerful this silence is, we must explore what silence can hold. Silence holds healing. Silence holds reflection. Silence holds moments of self-discovery. Silence holds the courage to step away. Silence holds the power to redefine one's life. In the Duggar sisters' case, silence may represent a form of emotional realignment. Years of constant attention can create a disconnect between who you truly are and who the world expects you to be. And when life becomes too loud, silence becomes essential. Many fans, though confused at first, slowly began to appreciate this. They realized that silence was not a rejection of the audience. It was a return to self. A return to privacy. A return to emotional balance after years of being observed, discussed, and interpreted. The Duggar sisters' silence, in this sense, becomes a kind of protective cocoon. A space where transformation can happen unseen. A space where personal truths can form without scrutiny. A space where boundaries can finally be built. As the sisters retreat from the public eye, new questions arise, not from fear, but from curiosity about what this new chapter means for their identities. What new values are they forming? What new beliefs are shaping their lives? What new priorities are guiding their choices? What dreams are they quietly pursuing behind closed doors? These are questions only they can answer, and only when they are ready. One of the most compelling aspects of this silence is how gracefully the family appears to be respecting it. Even as they share updates about events, babies, projects, or milestones, they do not draw attention to the sisters who are absent. They do not publicly explain the silence, nor do they attempt to fill in the gaps. This lack of explanation may frustrate some fans, but it also reflects a deeper truth. Some stories are not meant to be told yet. Some journeys need time to unfold. Some transformations must occur in private. The internet thrives on instant explanations. When someone goes silent, people expect answers immediately. But emotional growth does not follow society's timelines. It follows the timelines of the heart. And hearts need time. Time to unwind. Time to rest. Time to heal from pressures that others cannot see. Time to grow into someone new. In this sense, the silence is a gift the sisters have given themselves, a rare and precious pause in a life that was always lived in motion. But there is another layer to this story. A layer that speaks to the bond the sisters share. Sisters often mirror one another emotionally. When one sister takes a step toward healing, others may follow. When one creates a boundary, it gives permission for others to do the same. When one chooses silence, it creates a ripple effect. This ripple effect can be seen in their simultaneous retreat. Each of them may be handling different emotions, different life circumstances, and different transitions. But collectively, their silence forms a tapestry of shared growth. It reflects the natural rhythms of adulthood, where siblings grow into individuals with separate lives, responsibilities, and identities. In the public eye, this shift may feel dramatic. But in private life, this shift is normal. It is natural for adult siblings to drift into their own routines, their own schedules, their own paths. The Duggar sisters, however, live such visible lives that their natural evolution feels like a mystery, simply because the world was used to seeing them constantly. The truth is that relationships do not weaken because of decreased visibility. They simply change form. The sisters may still be deeply connected in ways the public cannot see, through private conversations, personal gatherings, phone calls, shared memories, and moments too intimate to display publicly.
And perhaps that is exactly how they want it. This leads us to one of the most emotionally rich questions of the entire mystery. What does it mean to step away from a life you never chose? The Duggar sisters were born into fame. They never auditioned for it. They never signed up for it. They never had the chance to decide whether they wanted it. Stealing away, therefore, becomes an act of self-definement, a reclaiming of autonomy, a rewriting of their stories as adults who now have the power to choose what parts of their lives belong to the world, what parts belong to themselves. Some fans worry that the silence means something tragic. But silence is not always a sign of pain. Sometimes silence is a sign of peace finally taking root. Think of how a lake appears still on the surface, while underneath, life continues to move. Think of how a quiet room allows thoughts to settle and find shape. Think of how sunsets mark not endings, but transitions to a softer kind of light. This is what the sisters' silence resembles, a soft transition into a new version of their lives. As we observe this transition, we can see traces of self-care woven throughout it. Sisters focusing on their families, sisters exploring new hobbies, sisters deepening their relationships, sisters creating new routines, sisters building boundaries for the first time in their lives. These are the quiet victories that happen off camera, the victories that matter most, the victories that show growth. And with the sisters, silence may be the exact chapter they need right now, a gene that nurtures their emotional well-being. Eventually, when the time is right, they may reappear online or resurface in family photos. But when they do, their presence will come from authenticity rather than obligation. It will come from joy rather than expectation. It will come from their own desire rather than the weight of public memory. Silence does not erase someone from the story. It simply turns the page to a chapter the audience does not get to read yet. The Duggar sisters are still writing the chapter now. Each in their own voice, each in their own way, each in their own quiet corner of life. And when they decide to reveal it, the world will finally understand. The silence was not a disappearance. 'Twas preparation. A preparation for the women they are becoming. As the silence of the Duggar sisters continues to stretch into the present day, one thing has become undeniably clear. This quiet chapter is shaping them into more complete, authentic versions of themselves. It is a transformation happening not on camera, not on social media, and not in public conversations, but in the private corners of their lives where real growth takes place. Silence, once confusing to fans, now stands as a profound reminder that people evolve even when they are not being watched. To understand the full weight of this transformation, we must explore the emotional undercurrent beneath it. The Duggar sisters, though raised in a shared environment, are now adults navigating different seasons of life. Their silence may align, but their reasons may be deeply personal. Some may be embracing motherhood in quieter, more intentional ways, choosing to raise their children with privacy that they themselves never had. Some may be focusing on emotional healing, recovering from years of pressure, expectations, and the emotional complexities that come from growing up in the public eye. Some may be building marriages away from online scrutiny, learning to nurture relationships that don't have to be validated with posts or stories. Some may simply be tired of the noise, the commentary, the assumptions, choosing instead to focus on what is real and present. And some may be redefining spirituality, identity, and personal beliefs, quietly reshaping the foundation of who they are as individuals. What fans see as silences, in reality, a deep, private rebuilding of identity. The transition from public figure to private person is not an instant shift. It is a journey that takes courage, commitment, and self-awareness. For the sisters, who spent much of their youth being watched, stepping away from visibility may feel like discovering a new version of freedom. Freedom to wake up without thinking about an audience. Freedom to make mistakes without headlines. Freedom to experience joy without posting it. Freedom to grow without explanation. This freedom is rare for people who grew up in the spotlight, but it is necessary. And while fans miss them, this chapter is not about absence. It is about presence. Presence with themselves. Presence with their families. Presence in the reality of their lives, rather than the performance of them. The world often forgets that silence is not static. Silence is movement, just in a different direction. While noise rushes outward, silence travels inward. The Duggar sisters' inward journey is not visible, but it is meaningful. They are not disappearing. They are not withdrawing in fear. They are not stepping back because something is wrong. They are stepping into a new form of life, one that honors their personal boundaries, their emotional well-being, and the simple truth that not every chapter must be public. Their absence from social media is not a sign of crisis, it is a sign of transition. And transitions often require privacy. Behind closed doors, the sisters continue to live full lives. They laugh, they gather, they share meals, they raise children, they celebrate birthdays, they face challenges, they experience joy. They heal, they grow. None of these moments are posted online, but that does not mean they aren't real. In fact, some of the most authentic moments in life happen away from cameras. Moments of vulnerability, moments of honesty, moments of connection. These moments shape a person far more deeply than any post ever could. And this is what makes the silence so powerful. It reflects the shift from performing life to living life, from documenting experiences to experiencing them, from being watched to being present. For fans who watch the sisters grow up, this shift can feel bittersweet, but it is also hopeful. It means the sisters are choosing what is best for their emotional well-being. It means they are discovering who they are beyond the expectations of the world. The mystery surrounding their silence becomes more beautiful when seen from this perspective. It is not a puzzle to solve. It is a journey to respect. It is a choice to honor. It is a chapter to witness with empathy. As the story unfolds, the question is no longer, when will the sisters return? The question becomes, who will they be when they return? They may come back as more grounded, more confident versions of themselves. They may return with new perspectives and new boundaries. They may appear only occasionally, with intention and clarity. Or they may remain mostly private, sharing only what brings them peace. Any of these paths are valid because the choice belongs to them. The beauty of adulthood is autonomy, the ability to build a life according to your own values, not the values assigned to you by others. The Duggar sisters are embracing this autonomy more fully than ever before. And as they continue to walk this quiet path, their silence tells a story of courage. Courage to step away. Courage to grow. Courage to rediscover who they truly are. Courage to live life on their own terms. Their journey reminds us of a simple truth. Visibility is not the same as worth. Noise is not the same as meaning. Attention is not the same as fulfillment. Sometimes the most powerful transformation happens in silence. And the Duggar sisters' silence is a testament to that truth. One day, perhaps, they will share their stories themselves. They will speak in their own voices, at their own pace. They will reveal what they learned in this quiet season. They will choose what to show and what to keep. But until that day comes, their silence is enough. It is complete. It is meaningful. It is a chapter of becoming. And as this documentary draws to a close, one thing becomes clear. The Duggar sisters did not disappear. They did not fade away. They did not get lost in the silence. They simply stepped into a quieter, deeper, and more authentic version of their lives. And sometimes, the greatest update is the one you never post. As the months passed, the silence of the Duggar sisters began to shape not only their personal lives, but the way the public remembered them. Memories of the sisters, bright, talkative, always together, became softer, more distant, more nostalgic. It was as if their online presence had become a series of echoes, reminders of a time when their lives were constantly in motion before the eyes of millions. Those echoes, however, now stood beside something new, a quiet stillness. And in that stillness, fans started noticing patterns they had previously overlooked. The missing sisters were not simply absent, they were choosing a different rhythm, a slower pulse, a life anchored in calm rather than exposure. This transition wasn't abrupt. It happened gently, like leaves falling one by one. Their posts became less frequent. Their presence in family gatherings became harder to spot. Their connection with public updates slowly dissolved. But what remained was something far more meaningful: traces of who they were becoming. Each sister began to develop a kind of emotional doorway, a separation between their public and private identities. Behind that doorway, their lives continued to unfold, raising children, navigating new relationships, building homes, learning new skills, facing challenges, celebrating victories. But those moments were no longer placed on display. And for the first time, the sisters seemed to be shaping their lives on their own terms. To understand this more fully, imagine the emotional weight of being recognized everywhere. Imagine living in a world where people you have never met feel entitled to comment on your choices, your appearance, your actions, even your beliefs. Imagine having little control over which parts of your life become public conversation. This invisible burden follows you everywhere. And when the sisters stepped back, it was as though they finally put that burden down. Their silence became a kind of emotional refuge, a place where they could breathe freely, without performance, without pressure. And the longer this silence lasted, the more comfortable it seemed to become. What once felt like absence now felt like intention. What once felt like mystery now felt like freedom, quietly taking shape. But their silence did not erase the bonds they shared with each other. In fact, in the quiet, their sisterhood may have grown stronger. Behind the scenes, they remained connected comfortably, privately, intentionally. A phone call here, a text message there, a small visit, a shared memory, a conversation that didn't need to be shared publicly. The world often assumes that visibility equals closeness, but true closeness exists in places the public never sees. And so, while the sisters may not appear in photos together, their bond may be deeper than it has ever been, because it is free from expectation, free from obligation, free from online commentary. Quiet relationships can be the strongest. As fans continued to search for answers, they often discovered another truth: adulthood itself changes the ways siblings remain present in each other's lives. Adult siblings naturally drift into their own families, careers, and routines. They visit less often. They communicate in different rhythms. They build their own lives. And slowly, naturally, the dynamic shifts. For the Duggar sisters, that shift simply happened under a spotlight. Where most families experience these changes privately, the Duggar family experiences them publicly. So normal transitions look dramatic. Normal distance looks mysterious. Normal independence looks like disappearance. The reality, though, is much simpler. The sisters didn't walk away from each other. They walked toward themselves. Each of them seems to be exploring her own form of growth. Some may be diving deeper into motherhood, others into hobbies or creativity, some into marriage and family building, others into strengthening their sense of identity. Each journey is valid, each journey is personal, and each journey requires a level of privacy that the public eye rarely allows. As time goes on, these quiet chapters will likely shape the sisters more deeply than any public moments ever did. Silence has a way of cleaning out the noise, allowing a person to hear the truths that once got drowned out. In that clarity, new priorities form. The sisters may now be discovering what brings them genuine happiness, what relationships matter most, what kind of mothers they want to be, what beliefs they want to redefine, what boundaries they need to protect, what dreams they want to pursue privately. And each discovery pushes them further toward a life that doesn't require validation from anyone. But while their silence may be peaceful for them, for fans it has remained a puzzle, one that has fueled ongoing curiosity. People wonder when the sisters will post again. They wonder what has changed. They wonder whether the silence is temporary or permanent. The truth is that silence does not have an expiration date. It ends only when a person feels ready to speak again. And the Duggar sisters may choose to return someday, perhaps with a single picture, a short message, or a quiet reappearance in a family photo. Or perhaps their return will be subtle, a soft presence rather than a spotlight. But no matter when or how they return, their silence will have shaped them into stronger, more grounded individuals. Because silence is not stagnation. It is transformation. And transformation requires space. For fans who still feel confused, it's important to recognize that not all stories unfold publicly. Some stories live in the quiet places of life and emerge only when they are fully formed. The sisters' story is such a story. Eventually, there may come a time when the missing pieces begin to make sense. When their journey becomes visible again, when their silence reveals the growth it has been protecting. That moment may come soon, or it may take years. But it will come naturally, without pressure. Until then, fans can hold on to this understanding. The Duggar sisters' silence is not a mystery to be solved. It is a journey to be honored. A journey of adulthood. A journey of identity. A journey of healing. A journey of choosing themselves. And as this chapter continues, the silence will remain a powerful reminder that lives do not need to be public to be meaningful. As the silence of the Duggar sisters deepens, a new understanding begins to take shape, not just for the fans watching from a distance, but for the sisters themselves. With every quiet month, every unseen family gathering, every absence from the spotlight, they step further into a life that is defined not by public expectation, but by personal clarity. Clarity grows in quiet places. And the sisters' silence has created a vast inner space, one where growth can happen without interruption, without noise, and without judgment. To appreciate the magnitude of their transformation, we must look at the emotional blueprint of a person who lives their entire life in a public narrative. When every milestone is recorded, every expression captured, every misstep magnified, the boundary between one's inner world and outer world becomes thin, sometimes too thin to bear. The Duggar sisters grew up in a life where privacy was not a natural part of childhood or adolescence, but adulthood has given them the opportunity to reclaim the parts of themselves that were once shared so widely. Their silence is a reclamation of identity, a reclamation of autonomy, a reclamation of emotional space, a reclamation of the right to be unseen. This decision, though subtle, carries a profound emotional weight. The public often interprets silence as retreat or conflict. But silence can be a form of strength, an assertion of boundaries, a declaration of independence, a quiet rebuilding of inner foundations. The sisters may be discovering what they want their lives to feel like, not what they want their lives to look like. This distinction matters. A life built for visibility can become exhausting. A life built for authenticity becomes sustainable. The transition from visibility to authenticity is not a straight line. It takes time. It takes courage. It takes a willingness to confront unspoken emotions. And it takes space that the sisters are finally giving themselves. In that space, they may be learning what brings them joy outside of public attention. They may be nurturing friendships and connections that feel more personal, more intimate, more real. They may be investing in family moments that do not need to be shared. They may be redefining what success, happiness, and peace truly mean for them. And in that quiet transformation, something extraordinary begins to happen. Life becomes theirs again. Not content for others to analyze. Not performances for an audience. Not curated snapshots for strangers. Just life real, unfiltered, genuine life. The world may not see these moments, but these are the moments that shape a person most deeply. The small morning routines. The conversations over dinner. The shared laughter in private rooms. The growth that happens away from the camera lens. These are the moments that build the person behind the public image. As the sisters continue to prioritize this inner world, the distance between their past public selves and their current private selves widens. They are no longer defined by the narratives that once surrounded them. They are writing their own stories now, stories that do not need immediate explanations or online confirmation. This shift is not just individual, it is collective. Their shared silence suggests a shared evolution, like birds learning to migrate toward different horizons, carried by the same winds of adulthood. Fans may long for updates, but the updates the sisters are living now cannot be posted. They are emotional updates, psychological updates, spiritual updates, internal narratives that cannot be captured in a photograph. One day, those updates will make sense. One day, the silence will have a voice. One day, the missing pieces will come together. But not yet. For now, the silence remains the safest place for their growth. Growth often looks different from the outside. From a distance, it can look like withdrawal. Up close, it looks like healing. And in the heart, it feels like freedom. Freedom from past roles. Freedom from public expectation. Freedom from always needing to be visible. Freedom from noise. This freedom becomes the foundation for their future selves. The Duggar sisters may be silent today, but this silence is building something stronger than the public could ever imagine. It is allowing them to transform at their own pace, in their own direction, with their own definitions of peace and purpose. And when they finally emerge from this chapter, whether publicly or privately, they will emerge as women shaped not by the spotlight, but by the quiet strength that comes from choosing a life that aligns with their inner truth. This is not the mystery of disappearance. This is the mystery of becoming. As we reach the end of this documentary journey, the conclusion is clear. The Duggar sisters did not go silent because something was wrong. They went silent because something needed to be right. Their silence is not the absence of life. It is the presence of a life being lived more deeply, more authentically, and more intentionally than ever before. Someday, when they are ready, their voices will return. And when they do, those voices will speak from a place of clarity, strength, and self-understanding. A place that was forged in quiet moments the world never saw. Until that day, the silence stands not as a question mark, but as a powerful period, a moment of rest, a moment of peace, a moment of truth. The Duggar sisters are not missing. They are transforming, and sometimes the most profound stories are the ones told in silence.